Restless. The gang wanders around the Black Lodge for 40 minutes.
We open with Buffy asking Riley if he'll be okay going back to the Initiative, the organization that implanted secret behavior-altering chips in his central nervous system and manipulated him from square one to achieve their own nefarious objectives to take over humanity. But he says, "Don't worry, it'll be fine. It's just a debriefing." Then he proceeds to talk about how he's prepping everyone to testify against the Initiative. So, yeah, you should definitely go back to their base of operations to help people destroy the organization's credibility. He says he'll probably be honorably discharged for not revealing anything that went on there. And Willow even points out, so you're blackmailing the government. So, yeah, there would definitely be no reason for the government to not want Riley around.
And he mentions that idiot number 2 is still alive. I thought he was the guy that tried to shoot Willow and then got killed by a demon last episode, but I guess not.
He's going to come back as Too Bad with idiot number 1.
Oh, man. Don't even suggest that. And we see Joyce, and she says it's nice to finally meet Riley, right before he leaves. As she goes off to bed, she says she's surprised that everyone else is still awake, and they say they're too keyed up to sleep. So Xander puts Apocalypse Now in the VCR, and they all fall asleep before it starts, which is understandable.
We go into Willow's dream first, which is about Tara and their cat.
Tara says Willow doesn't know everything about her, and that everyone else will find out the truth about Willow, and she's painting in Greek on Tara's back. Willow opens the red curtain, revealing a brightly lit desert, and she says there's something out there. And then we get a cool shot of the cat walking toward the camera in slow motion.
The next dream day, Willow's in school, where Oz and Xander ask her about taking drama class and doing magic. And she makes her way to the drama class, where everyone's in costume and preparing to go on stage for their first production, including Harmony.
Willow is very nervous, but Buffy tells her that her costume is perfect and no one will know the truth about her. And while director Giles gets everyone ready, Willow catches a glimpse of the thing she saw outside the window.
And Buffy told Willow that her whole family was in the front row, and I wondered if that included Willow's mom from that one episode.
Yeah, I wondered if we were going to get to see her again, but we don't.
Because they brought back so many other people from different episodes in this one.
Everything suddenly gets quiet, and a weird bespectacled guy says he made room for the cheese slices. Willow makes her way through some of the red curtains and finds Mike's arm. Oh wait, no. She finds Tara, who says that things aren't going well, and Willow hasn't figured things out yet.
She says if everyone finds out about the real Willow, they will punish her, and then disappears as weird claw things rip through the curtains.
And we get a glimpse of the play, where Mark Lucas shows that he can, in fact, act.
I've come looking for a man. A salesman.
Suddenly, regular, non-costume Buffy rescues Willow, saying the play's long over, and for Willow to remove her costume before she rips her clothes off.
Willow finds herself standing in front of a class of Buffy characters and dressed like she was at the beginning of Season 1. She tries to read her book report, but is distracted by Oz and Tara laughing at her, and then gets attacked by whatever was chasing her. And for a second I thought it was Ampata, because she's like sucking out her life force and she looks like a mummy.
Oh, yeah. She's probably still touring. Back in the real world, Willow is struggling in her sleep when Xander wakes up, but it's pretty clear he's still dreaming, and it's just dreamed that he woke up.
But does that mean he also... Well, no, that doesn't make sense.
Don't try and analyze Inception here and now.
On the TV, Apocalypse Now is apparently a better movie than in real life.
You know, I liked Apocalypse Now.
I knew you were going to say that. I'll give it another shot at some point.
Well, I've only seen the Redux version or whatever.
Yeah, me too.
I like that one.
Thought it was pretentious and kind of boring.
You just cannot accept that Martin Sheen has been in things that are better than Spawn.
Is that possible? I mean, I don't know. Xander finally notices what's happening to Willow, but Buffy says she's faking. And Xander gets up to pee.
He goes upstairs to find Joyce, who is in full seduction mode, so I'm sure this was your favorite part of the episode.
Well, my note says she looks even hotter than usual. She comes onto him and invites him to bed, but he says he has to pee first, and goes to the restroom, where he finds a bunch of Initiative personnel watching, so he leaves.
But once he leaves, he finds himself in his basement, with somebody trying to break in.
He wanders around before finding the others on an overexposed playground.
Buffy's playing in the sandbox, and Giles and Spike are swinging as mentor and protege. And I wondered when the last time Anthony Stewart Head and James Marsters actually swung on a swing, because it looks so goofy.
Xander says he always has to be moving forward, and he looks up and sees himself at his ice cream man job. He tells Buffy she better watch out where she plays, as the sandbox briefly turns into the desert from earlier, but she says it's not coming after her yet.
Xander then finds himself in the ice cream truck talking to Anya, who is considering becoming a vengeance demon again, while Willow and Tara are making out in the back.
They invite Xander to go back, and Anya tells him to go ahead, while she steers like a typical American driver. But when Xander goes back, he finds himself in his basement, where that something is still trying to get in.
He also finds Cheese Slice Guy, who tells Xander that the cheese slices will not protect him. Probably because it was Swiss and they had a bunch of holes in it.
Oh, man.
I'll have you know, I have resisted the urge to throw out every cheese pun that I could so far.
I'm sure you're saving them all for the end. Xander goes out into a greenly lit school hallway where the something is following him. He asks Giles what it is, and Giles says it's all because of what they did. And when he tries to tell Xander what to do, he starts speaking Frankais.
Oh, man.
I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't actually speak Frankais, so I'm not sure.
Anya pops in, and she's also speaking French.
Is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
And then everyone picks Xander up, and he finds himself in an Apocalypse Now scene with Principal Cork, who tells him his time is running out.
And I thought Armin Shimmerman actually did a really good job in just that one little scene. He tells Xander that he's not a soldier, but a whipping boy. And when Xander stands up, he finds himself at Giles's, where the thing chasing them is right outside.
He runs through all of the interconnected set pieces, which I thought was really cool.
And at one point, Xander running between the walls reminded me of Evil Dead 2.
He finishes in the basement, where the door is finally kicked open, and it's his dad, who then turns into the monster and rips Xander's heart out.
And that's the first time we've seen any of Xander's family, so I wonder if they'll bring that actor back for later. We go into Giles's head, where he is hypnotizing Buffy with a watch as a pendulum. I don't know what the watch means.
He's a watcher.
Oh, yeah, that's probably it.
Duh.
Oh, damn it. Giles finds himself with Olivia in the graveyard at night, which is being visited by a carnival, and Buffy is apparently their young daughter. And they come to a game where Buffy has to throw a ball at a vampire, and even in the dream, Giles comments on her lack of competency as the Slayer when she misses.
Buffy, you have a sacred birthright to protect mankind. Don't stick out your elbow.
Spike calls him over to his crypt, saying he's made himself one of the attractions. And he's in black and white as he makes cool, and that's in quotes, poses, while people take pictures and gasp with amazement every time he does it.
And he says that Giles needs to get things figured out. And then the cheese guy pops out wearing cheese.
Giles then finds himself in the bronze with Willow and Xander, who still has his heart ripped out, and Anya is on stage attempting a stand-up routine.
And she was better than I expected.
Better than 80% of the stuff that's been on that stage so far.
That's true.
There's a duck. Is that right?
You suck.
Quiet! You'll miss the humorous conclusion.
Willow tells Giles that some primal force is after them, and it's his fault. And Giles says it used to be them.
Willow says if they don't know what it is, they don't have a chance. And Giles responds by moving up on stage, singing that the spell they cast against Adam must have released some primal force, and he's got to warn Buffy. And this was also probably the best music we have ever heard at the Bronze.
I don't know, I like that Sugar Water song, but I would put this in second.
I know you're also a big fan of Mouth Keys, whatever the hell that song was about.
Of course. Giles gets feedback from the microphone and follows the cord backstage and finds the watch. He says it was obvious, and the thing that's been following them appears over him, and he says he knows who it is, and he can defeat it with his intellect. And he says it underestimates him because it never had a watcher.
Before it slices open his head.
Which was pretty cool.
The only remaining member of the party is Buffy, who wakes up in her dorm with Anya in the other bed.
Telling her to wake up.
And then she sees the monster hanging right above her before she finds herself back at the house.
She's looking at her bed and says that she and Faith just made the bed, back in This Year's Girl. And when Tara asks who they made it for, Buffy says she thought Tara would tell her.
Tara says Buffy thinks she knows what's going on, but she hasn't even begun.
Buffy goes out to find the rest of the gang, and Tara tells her to be back before dawn, which also reminded me of Evil Dead 2.
Buffy finds herself in school. She's still looking for everyone, but no one can help her. And she finds Joyce through a busted hole in the wall, who says she doesn't mind living in the walls.
And I wondered what the significance of that was. And my conclusion was that there isn't any.
I think it's because Buffy always puts up a wall.
I knew that's what you were going to say. But why is she in a wall in the school?
Because she cares about Buffy's education.
Oh, yeah, right. She knows Buffy's a lost cause.
We've even pointed out ourselves how Joyce never shows up. She's always just behind the scenes doing whatever.
Yeah, and now she's literally behind the scene.
That's called symbolism.
Buffy keeps going and finds an initiative room with Riley and Human Adam. Riley says he is now the Surgeon General.
And they're working on a way to take over the world. Felt like I was playing Resident Evil 5.
If that's what Resident Evil 5 is like, then I definitely don't want to play it.
Yeah, you do not want to play that game.
And Adam says that Buffy's aggressive reactions are a normal human tendency, but it applies differently to himself and Buffy. Buffy says they aren't demons, but Adam seems to doubt that.
All of the demons break out, and I like that little PA announcement. That was funny.
The demons have escaped. Please run for your lives.
This could be trouble.
And when Buffy goes to find weapons, her bag's only full of, what was that, clay? Oatmeal?
Whatever it is, she starts smearing it all over her face.
So I hope it wasn't some kind of animal shit.
See, I was hoping it was.
I think you're projecting a lot now. You're providing a lot of symbolism here.
Yeah, my anger at this show. And especially Buffy herself. Riley comes back saying he thought she was looking for her friends. And he calls her a killer and says she's on her own. Buffy finds herself in the desert, which they surprisingly actually shot at a desert, which was cool. And she finds Tara, who says she was borrowed because someone needs to speak for her. And the her that has been following them shows itself to be a seemingly feral girl wearing face paint and ragged clothing.
And through Tara, she says she has no voice and no name, and is the first Slayer. And then despite having no voice, she starts talking.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Buffy says she's not alone like the first Slayer was, and requests her friends back. But the first Slayer refuses, saying they are lone killers. And the cheese man pops out before they start fighting. As they roll down a big hill, Buffy suddenly wakes up.
She's in the living room, and the first Slayer jumps on top of her and starts stabbing. But Buffy says she'll just ignore her, saying she's not the source of her, before she wakes up for real.
The others also wake up, and they sit around the table and talk.
Giles surmises that the spell they performed linked them to Buffy and affronted the source of Slayer power.
And I liked his response when Buffy says he should have warned them.
You know, you could have brought that up to us before we did it.
I did. I said there could be dire consequences.
Joyce comes in saying she must have missed something, and when Willow says they almost died in their dreams, Joyce doesn't even react to it, and just asks if they want hot chocolate.
Buffy goes to take a shower and mentions the cheese guy as she's walking away.
And the others all look at each other, confirming that the cheese guy will be the main villain of the next season.
One would hope. See, I thought of another good joke to put here, but I'm not going to do it.
Buffy goes up to her room and looks at her bed, remembering what Tara said about her not knowing what was coming and what she really was.
Was she remembering her saying that, or was Tara's voice actually saying that?
I'm pretty sure she was remembering. I don't think there was a suggestion that it was... Or did you think Buffy was still dreaming, maybe?
Possibly, or the first Slayer was somehow psychically projecting speech or something.
I'm sure they'll explain everything in the next season. Restless. Overall?
The way this episode went all Twin Peaks made it very interesting. It's like this was an entirely different show, and if every episode was like this whole show would be way better. This is not the first, or second, or probably third nightmare-related episode we've had, but it was by far the best in that category. Although it would have been a nice throwback to have those giant, fake CGI wasps flying everywhere in one of their dreams.
Oh man, what a missed opportunity.
Actual symbolism, without a character outright telling us, this is what this means. Please do more of that, but they won't. The construction between sets was cool. Also the cinematography and the way lighting was used. Again, it was like it was an entirely different show. That was better. I like that so many past characters made reappearances, but not in a stupid way. This was by far the most engaging episode of the entire season for me. And while I have hopes, I suspect this episode was an outlier. In Season 5, we'll revert back to same old, same old.
You gave Hush an A-, I think. Do you think this was better than that?
It kept me more engaged.
Okay.
Just because I didn't know what was going to happen next. Whereas in Hush, I assumed people would start talking eventually. It would be great if every episode involving the first Slayer is presented in Twin Peaks moments, but I doubt that will happen. Even by the end of this episode, it was back to normal. As soon as they woke up, they were just dumb again. They know what's going on, they know who they're fighting, so you would think they would relay what their dreams were, in detail, to each other, to form some kind of methodology or plan of attack. But instead, they just shrug and keep it to themselves.
Well, we don't know that. We didn't see their entire conversation.
I would bet they bring up little bits of their dreams all spread out and act like every time it's some kind of revelation when it could have helped them months before if they had just said it. At the very least, I think they'd mention that Tara played a big part in all of their dreams. And Buffy had the most explicit one, where things were explained up front and not through symbolism. So you'd think she would tell them everything, but she just wants to take a shower. I did like this episode. It was so different from everything else. And while that is a plus on its own, this episode was just really well crafted. Gave it a pretty high grade, despite it not having really anything to do with anything else.
I mean, could that be why it's a high grade?
That's possible. I made it into A range for this one. I gave it an A-.
I thought about an A-. I ended up giving it a B+. I also really liked this episode, and I agree that it was a standout in the season. You said a lot of the same things that I have in my notes. I liked the Twin Peaks similarity. I liked how enigmatic they were about the hints for things to come. Like you said, they didn't hit you over the head with what everything meant. And my notes even say, I much prefer this approach. And I really liked how most of the time when you get dream sequences in TV shows or movies, it feels the same as everything else. It's just that it turns out they were dreaming. But this episode did a really good job of making it feel like a dream, especially the way things keep changing during the same scene, or even the character's perspective will change. Suddenly they'll be somewhere else. It felt very accurate to what real dreams are like. And I've never seen that in another dream sequence that I can think of. Even Freddy vs. Jason didn't manage to do that. And it was very surprising to get an episode this interesting right after all the crap with Adam. And I'm both glad and especially surprised that they acknowledged the spell that they cast last episode to beat him. But it seemed like they didn't do anything to beat the first Slayer or whatever. It just kind of gave up and went away, which didn't really make sense.
And the fact that Buffy just said, I'm going to ignore you, and then stood up and walked away. So is she actually a threat?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it kind of made me think of Nightmare on Elm Street, when Nancy tells Freddy that he's not real and it's just a dream, and he doesn't have power.
Yeah, but that one kid tried to do that too. And Freddy said, I don't believe in comic books. And then he did something to him.
Yeah, I didn't say those movies were consistent. Maybe if they had devoted a bit more time at the end to the explanation, instead of spending almost the entire episode on the dreams, as good as that was, even just another minute of explanation or even a couple of lines could have done it. Maybe Giles could have said that the first Slayer's energy was exhausted through the combination of the spell and what it had done in their dreams or something. Could have been anything. And I'm not satisfied with how they ended things with Riley here. None of that was convincing. I'm glad he wasn't in the episode that much, even if he did pop up in the dreams. I hope that the next season isn't more of the same dumb initiative stuff in the background like that, because that hasn't made sense through the entire season, and the way they ended things here was just really stupid. And it was weird that Anya and Tara still weren't actually there with everyone else, but at least Spike wasn't hanging out with them for no reason. And bringing up the cheese guy. According to Joss Whedon, the reason the cheese guy is in the episode is because not everything in dreams actually makes sense in real life. Not everything symbolizes something. There's just random stuff in dreams sometimes. But if they all dreamt about this cheese man, I would think there's some kind of significance to it because he pops up in all of their dreams. So it seems like by sticking him in there like that, Joss Whedon kind of undermined his own intention with that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's disappointing that he couldn't let the episode speak for itself and had to just stick in something stupid for stupidity's sake.
Especially since so much of the episode is symbolic in an intentional way. Even if we don't know what a lot of it means yet, it's clear that it's there for a reason and setting things up. To then just throw in the cheese guy was kind of out of place.
It weakened everything.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know that it doesn't mean anything, then you're going to think that it means something. And that would make it more disappointing when you find out that it doesn't. So unfortunately, he will not be the main villain next season, as much as I was hoping.
Damn.
But I'm glad we at least got a really good episode at the end of the season. I guess in our season wrap-up, we'll talk more about whether that helped save it or not.
So I guess the show's going to be really good now, and every episode is going to be great, and there's going to be all this symbolism without them just outright explaining it to us, and hopefully we won't watch the first episode of Season 5 and realize it was all a dream.